Prime Minister's questions.
Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Question number 1 to the Prime Minister. What is the government's new policy on witness tampering and witness protection? If there is no new policy, what is the current policy which is in effect?
Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you very much. At the outset, let me say that my government has taken the toughest stance possible on the issue of witness tampering. Indeed, it was our government which passed the Amendment Miscellaneous Provision Administration of Justice Act 2014. That act was assented to in September 10th, 2014. And in that act, we amended the Criminal Offences Act to create a new offence of obstruction of justice. And therefore, our policy on witness tampering is codified in this law, which was passed in this Parliament with the Leader of Opposition sitting here, being part of that debate in this House. And maybe, I don't know if, I wonder whether the Honourable Leader of the Opposition may be still Bazodi and does not recall that we in this House passed an amendment to the law to allow to codify an offence of witness tampering, and I have this section here. It is Part 3 of the Miscellaneous Provisions Administration of Justice Act 2014. In this, Part 3 creates the criminal offence as follows. 11(2), Section 11(2). A person who knows or reasonably believes that another person is assisting in investigation of an offence or a witness or potential witness in any proceedings, whether civil or criminal, and uses threats, force, or bribery or any other means to intimidate or dissuade that other person from assisting in the investigation or giving evidence, or influence that other person to give false evidence, withhold true evidence, not attend court as a witness, or not produce any document, record, or other object in evidence, commits an offence. And this, the penalties for this offence of witness tampering in common parlance is conviction on indictment to a fine of $100,000 and to imprisonment for 20 years. So that is the government's policy, which has been codified in the laws of Trinidad and Tobago. We did other things with witness protection and so on, but I think this is the main codification in statute law with respect to witness tampering. I thank you very much, Madam.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I wonder if the Prime Minister would tell us a little bit the other part of the question, which is witness protection. You spoke about witness tampering, and I thank you very much for that. And I was very much aware of it. But I'm asking you now if you will say anything on witness protection, as the question did request.
We can do so. And again, Madam Deputy Speaker, with your permission, with your leave, I think we want to understand, I have 14 questions to answer. That gives me 2 minutes per answer, 28 minutes, and we only have 30 minutes. So in terms of how many supplementals per question that we can deal with, how detailed the answers can be, I think that should be noted. That should be noted for general information. On the issue of witness protection, and justice protection, with respect to witness protection, we want to know that legislation already exists in the form of the Justice Protection Act, which was assented to 27th October 2000. It provides establishment of a program for the protection of witnesses and other persons. Our government paid particular attention to witness protection program, such that thus far in this term there have been no incidents of tampering with witnesses under the Justice Protection Program. That act sets out a policy for witness protection broadly, and the Justice Protection Agency created by the Act is headed by Calvin Bishop. The Justice Protection Program deals with the protection of vulnerable witnesses once identified. A witness tampering is dealt with by the police under the usual procedures so that they can act according to their own protocols and regulations in dealing what would be clearly offences, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. Prior to the Prime Minister's offering the candidacy of Mr. David West as chairman of the Police Complaints Authority, were there any discussions with any member or members of the cabinet, and was the former Attorney General Ananram Logan one such member?
Thank you. The name of Mr. David West was never discussed in the cabinet. Instead, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, wrote to me, and I suspect also to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, because in the law, this is a provision where the President acts to make the appointment on the advice of a consensus with the Leader of the Opposition and the Prime Minister. Letter dated September 2nd, 2014, His Excellency indicated that September 2nd, he received an instrument of resignation from the then head of the Police Complaints Authority, and he drew to my attention Section 6 of the Police Complaints Act, which spoke about the joint advice of both the Leader of the Opposition and myself, and said that he looked forward to hearing from me on the result of this process. Having received this letter in the Cabinet, I asked for recommendations. The Attorney General, former, and the Minister of National Security, former, may have been or would have been present. So, assuming or not admitting, they were present on that day when I asked the entire Cabinet for recommendations, so that the name of Mr. West was not discussed in the Cabinet. Thereafter, seeking recommendations, I received recommendations orally from several ministers, and I received the recommendation from former Minister of National Security, Mr. Gary Griffiths, orally, the recommendation being that of Mr. David West. Thereafter, I spoke with the Honourable Leader of the Opposition. I think we were supposed to have a meeting, and the Honourable Leader could not make it on that day. We spoke on the telephone. I indicated that I had a recommendation of Mr. David West, seeking his view on it. He indicated he would call me back. He did call me back and said, let's proceed with Mr. David West. In addition, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition wrote to me on 3rd November 2014, which says, further to our recent conversation, it is my recommendation that Mr. David West is eminently qualified and suitable to be appointed to fill the existing vacancy. It is my expectation that we should advise His Excellency accordingly, so this necessary appointment be made with greatest dispatch. Having received a letter of 3rd November 2014 from the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, I then wrote to His Excellency the President, attaching the letter from Mr. Keith Rowley, and advising His Excellency that we had both agreed on Mr. David West to be the chairman. I also wrote to Dr. Rowley on the 4th of November 2014. Thank you for your timely response on this matter, on the appointment of a director of the Police Complaints Authority, and find a copy of the letter that was sent to His Excellency, His Excellency President Kamla. So that was the state of play. In terms of discussions in the Cabinet, the Attorney General or any member of the Cabinet, no member of the Cabinet was apprised of the name of the person being proposed to be the Director of the Police Complaints Authority. I followed through on recommendations, and in my own judgment, I felt that Mr. West, as recommended by the Leader of the Opposition and myself, would be suitably qualified for that position. I thank you, Madam Deputy.
When did the Prime Minister know that Mr. David West was a witness in a private civil lawsuit filed by the former Attorney General Ananram Logan in a matter which he was prosecuting against Leader of the Opposition?
Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Like others in the country, I learned of this matter in the month of January 2015, but the matter was reported in the newspaper. I think this begs a question: when did the Honourable Leader of the Opposition know that Mr. West was his witness? And whether the Honourable Leader considered that under the Integrity in Public Life Act, that one cannot use their office to confer benefit either directly or indirectly onto himself through a recommendation. I repeat, at no time did the Honourable Leader of the Opposition indicate to me that Mr. West was his witness in a private lawsuit.
When did you know?
Is the Prime Minister telling this House that at no time during the contact and discussion and preparations for a recommendation for Mr. West to become chairman of the CPA, the Police Complaints Authority, that the Attorney General of the day say to her that he knew of Mr. West as a witness in a private lawsuit which he was prosecuting? And I admit, I didn't discuss it with the Prime Minister because as far as I was concerned, with the Prime Minister, there was no requirement to discuss it with the President because we will get there. The question is, do I have the floor?
Yes, correct.
Am I allowed to ask questions?
Yes, you are allowed to ask a question.
Is the Prime Minister saying to this House that up until the 18th of January, the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago, in preparation for her talking about appointing Mr. West, that at no time between June of 2014 and January of 2015 did the Attorney General tell her that he was prosecuting a civil matter, and in that civil matter, Mr. David West was a witness. And furthermore, did he tell her that he had been to court twice, in the appeal court and the high court, with the knowledge and expectation that Mr. West would be a witness in the matter?
My answer to that very long question is simply no. At no time did the former Attorney General indicate that there was this private law matter in which Mr. David West was a witness for the Leader of the Opposition in a private matter. This wasn't a matter of the Attorney General's office. It was a private matter. No time did the Attorney General nor did former Minister Gary Griffith indicate that this gentleman was a potential witness or would be a witness in a private lawsuit brought by the Attorney General against the Honourable Leader of the Opposition in his private capacity, of course.
Having said that and made the description of a private matter, is the Prime Minister also aware that the Leader of the Opposition was being sued in his private capacity?
I was not so aware. As I said, the only time this matter came to the forefront was when I read it, and I think at the same time, you know, there was a question, why did I take so long to deal with certain matters? I was out in the meeting in Washington with Vice President Biden, with the CARICOM heads, and then again with the CARICOM heads in Costa Rica. I returned on the Thursday night. I took statements and so on from the various personnel, and by the Monday we had made the decision, which I announced to the nation. But I make the point again, the answer to your question, sir, is no.
Thank you very much for the clarification. Would you control the member for Orapuch East, please? This is serious national business.
Allow the member to ask his question. Go right ahead, member.
Madam Deputy Speaker, would you control the member for Chaguanas East, please?
Chaguanas East. Allow the member to ask his question.
Since the Prime Minister has said, no, for all of them is a laughing matter. Everything is a laughing matter.
Okay. Member,
Everything is a laughing matter.
you're on a supplemental question.
No, thank you very much. Yes, I am.
Right.
Since the Prime Minister has raised this question of David West's testimony in the court being a benefit to me, and having said, had you known that he was a witness, they would have acted differently. What would the Prime Minister have done had you known?
Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Deputy Speaker and Honourable Leader of the Opposition, we have an expression, we say, had I known, I would have then asked that you declare and disclose your interest. It is a non-disclosure in the matter, and having declared that interest, then we could have gone forward because the gentleman may be eminently qualified and suitable for the post. But the fact is there was no non-disclosure. And in public office, under the Integrity in Public Law Act, there is a provision for non-disclosure in situations and scenarios like these. And on respect to your other question, look, I really don't know how many people sued you. I know you have a lot of law cases pending against you, but I don't know every single one. I don't keep a record of every time you've been sued. And perhaps I may soon have to sue your good self with respect to the Emailgate matter.
Yeah. Could the Prime Minister identify any interest that I have or would have had with respect to the appointment of David West as head of the Police Complaints Authority.
You know, again, I cannot understand that the Honorable Leader of the Opposition still cannot understand that when he made that recommendation and supported it, that he was acting in the public interest as under a constitutional duty, and therefore it was a public matter in the public interest. And therefore, what is the interest he's asking? That there is a conflict of interest in this matter, where there is a person who was or would have been, as I discovered in January, would be or was a witness in your private matter, and the leader fails to see that that is a conflict of interest when recommending that person to take up public office. I don't understand it. I am saying that the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, in my respectful view, fallen upon the Integrity in Public Life Act, had a duty to disclose that there is a conflict of interest in the matter.
We can carry this on for a little while longer, but we don't have the time. Has the government of Trinidad and Tobago and or the Chaguaramas Development Authority taken any steps or are taking any steps to dispose of state assets associated with the property known as Chaguaramas Convention Center and Hotel? By what means are those disposals taking place, and what are the terms of the arrangements?
Thank you very much. I am told that the Chaguaramas Development Authority has entered into a lease arrangement for 30 years with an option for renewal for another 30 years. The terms and conditions of that lease are based on the independent assessment undertaken on the structural integrity of the building and valuation of the property. Other critical factors considered are the positioning of the hotel as part of the CDA infrastructure program to support the overall investment build-out and engender investor and stakeholder confidence. Honourable Madam Deputy Speaker, this is all the information I have in the limited time that was available, and I will ask the Chairman of the CDA to give further details on this matter. I thank you very much.
Notwithstanding what the Prime Minister said finally there, just for the record of the Parliament, is the Prime Minister aware of any process which determined the beneficiary of that lease that you mentioned?
I would say that each state agency or authority must act in compliance with the manual for procurement and procedures as set out by the Ministry of Finance. There is a protocol in that regard, and of course, general laws of procurement. At this point in time, I cannot say what process was used, but certainly we can ask the Chairman to indicate should it have been done appropriately in accordance with the regulations. I'm sure the Chairman will be willing to provide that information.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I just want to, for the record, indicate that the Chairman of any state authority, Chaguaramas or otherwise, is not a member of this House, and the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago is responsible for the actions of the government of Trinidad. And therefore, I ask the Prime Minister, prior to 2010, it was the established protocol and regulation that disposal of lands and other assets at Chaguaramas required a cabinet approval. Has that been changed by your government?
Again, Honourable Madam Deputy Speaker, I will seek the information and provide information for the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The lease to which you referred a moment ago, and for terms which you cannot disclose to the Parliament today, did that lease or any similar lease appear before the Cabinet to get Cabinet approval for disposal of Chaguaramas assets?
Again, I would seek the information the Leader of the Opposition seeks and provides same.
Is the Prime Minister implying that a lease will have come before the Cabinet to dispose of the Chaguaramas Convention Center and she doesn't know?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I think we have reached over 2,000 to 3,000. But you asked a question, I'm answering it.
But you have asked,
the question.
Prime Minister, you have asked a question, Leader of the Opposition. Please allow the Prime Minister to answer you. Prime Minister?
No.
Prime Minister, you may proceed.
You think you'll start for that, no?
Prime Minister, you may proceed.
The question.
You want to spell something now?
I hope nothing gets spelted across the floor. You know, I'm saying we have 2,000 to 3,000 maybe cabinet notes, decisions, and minutes.
Yes.
There are times we have an acting prime minister in the chair. There are times when we're there. I am not hiding any information. I said we will get the information and provide accurate information.
Leader of the Opposition.
God, these things are very long.
Mr. Speaker. I'm moving on. Something like that? Oh, sorry.
I imagine it has to do with the question that was raised by the Leader of the Opposition.
Of course, Deputy Speaker.
If it is that we have already used up the 4 supplemental questions to that question. Leader of the Opposition.
With 54 murders in the first month and a half of 2015, what is the government doing about it, given that since 2010, it committed to eliminate the scourge of violent crime which continues to plague the nation?
Thank you. Government has made very significant strides in reducing the crime rate, serious crimes, ensuring safety and security of all citizens, and may we congratulate the Minister of National Security on a relatively safe and secure carnival. The Minister of National Security has provided statistics which show that serious crimes are down to its lowest level in more than 3 decades. In comparison to 2009, which saw the highest number of crimes in our nation's history. The focus in 2015 to continue to improve in our crime-fighting initiatives would be as follows. To reduce the perception and fear of crime. To secure our borders from illegal entry of drugs, weapons, and human trafficking. The seizure of illegal firearms. Increase in detection rate and improvement in crime scene investigation. Dismantling of gangs. Policies to deter and prevent terrorist activity. As requested, I will now outline some of the planned initiatives to help achieve these objectives. Acquisition of proper assets as required by the law enforcement agencies. Helicopters for the National Operations Center, as the previous choppers are over 30 years old. UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles. Interceptors to replace the defective interceptors acquired by the previous administration. Coastal patrol vessels to replace the defective and inappropriate vessels that we inherited. Long-range patrol vessels, hovercraft to patrol the coasts. In addition, audit of the TTPS, acquisition of an indoor shooting range for the TTPS, enhanced customer service training for the protective service personnel, enhanced intelligence gathering. These are but a few, and time will not permit the details, but I present these as my reply, sir.
At an earlier time, I think it was 2011, August 2011, there were 6 murders over a 4-day period, which caused the government under this Prime Minister to declare a state of emergency. Recently, a couple of weeks ago, just over 2 weeks ago, there were 5 murders within a 4-hour period. There were 6 murders in the 12-hour period, and there were 7 murders in the ensuing 24-hour period. Given that rate of killing in 2015, as compared to what happened earlier in 2011, when the government declared a state of emergency, would the Prime Minister tell us whether the government is more effectively dealing with the situation now, and if any progress has been made?
Progress has been made, Madam Deputy Speaker, and as I've indicated, several initiatives which we will be pursuing, some of which were started previously, some of which will continue, and some which will be new ones.
Given the fall in oil prices, does the Prime Minister intend to reduce and revise the appropriation for the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago?
At this point in time, there is no proposal to reduce or revise parliamentary appropriations. The Minister of Finance and Economy has the authority in law to suppress expenditure, and the actual expenditure incurred will then be reported in the appropriation accounts during or at the end of the fiscal year. So there is a transparent process that whatever is done must come back to the Parliament.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. With respect to the announcement in July 2014 of a cabinet committee headed by Minister Vasant Bharat to oversee the health sector, can the Prime Minister provide an update on the work of this committee, including the number of meetings held by the committee, whether official reports have been submitted, the achievements of and benefits derived from the establishment of this committee?
Minister.
Thank you. Madam Deputy Speaker, this National Health Council was established given the fact that in our conversations with people, MPs, others out there in conversations, healthcare is very high up as a priority for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago and, of course, residents and so on. And so in order to fast-track the work and to give a greater focus, expedite improvement in the health sector, we set up this National Health Council. We agreed to that council as of July 17, 2014. This council, established by Cabinet, formally assists in tending to all matters critical to the effective function of the health sector, as well as implementing solutions to assist in the efficient delivery of health care across the nation. The NHC consists of government ministers, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Health, as well as the chairpersons and CEOs of the regional health authorities of Trinidad and Tobago. Apart from its officiated members, they also retain the right to invite persons who can provide technical and specialized assistance to the Council. This Council works with a list of recommendations developed to address issues existent in the majority of the health institutions. Several of these recommendations were presented during the Prime Minister's public consultation campaign, the National Conversation Initiative. These issues range from long waiting lines to the quality of medication that is dispensed to the patient. The recommendations involve conducting beautification and maintenance of health institutions through ensuring clean surroundings, comfortable waiting rooms for patients. It also refers to implementation of a complaint system where patients can file a complaint and receive feedback within a time frame. Quality customer service is one of the top priorities. As such, the introduction of highly trained customer service representatives will improve effective communication with patients. 18 meetings of the NHC have been held thus far. Achievements of the interministerial NHC are as follows. Establishment of customer service representative program in affiliation with the on-the-job training program. 700 OJTs have been deployed at the 105 health facilities. Again, customer service representatives. Opening hours at health centers have been extended to 9 p.m. on weekdays, 4:30 p.m. on weekends. All district facilities are now open 24/7. The refurbishment of RHAs by CPEP and URP. All RHAs have been and are currently being refurbished and maintained. Toilet areas, kitchen, waiting areas, other internal improvements. External waiting areas being built. Outdoor maintenance, painting and beautification. New signage of health facilities. And these health facilities are now being furnished with standard medical equipment. In addition, the Commission has assisted with the reduction of operation and patient waiting listings by the external patient program, so that now the time frame has been cut down for MRIs, CT scans, same-day and surgical services. The deployment of accident and emergency manager for the efficient running of A&E areas and greater efficiency of ambulances. An audit of the C40 program has been completed in order to manage better availability and distribution of drugs. And very shortly, we will roll out, Madam Deputy Speaker, coming out of the Council, and they're helping to expedite policies and initiatives, the health card, the long-awaited health card. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Clarification. Those achievements sounded more like the achievements of the Ministry of Health. For example, and this is the supplemental, the extension of opening hours at the primary health care facilities, if I may, Madam Deputy Speaker. That is an initiative that began several years ago. How can the Prime Minister attribute that to a committee or council that was only formed in 2014?
I do not understand how an initiative which allows our health facilities to be open, extended hours 24/7 began years ago. Today we are saying that all our health facilities are opening 24/7, and we extended the waiting times because people were saying, look, when I come from work, it's so late, the health center is closed. We've extended those. And the question then is, how do you attribute this to the Health Commission? We attribute it because recommendations come to that commission, they consider them, and they look at implementation. The exact implementation, specific implementation, of course, is overall the Ministry of Health. But they are guided by recommendations, discussions, and so on with respect to the National Health Commission.
Have your seat, member. Honourable members, the Prime Minister's question time has expired.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that the Prime Minister's question time be extended until the completion of the responses by the Honourable Prime Minister to all 14 questions filed by members of the opposition. I beg to move.
Is this the wish of the House? Then you may proceed, member for Diego Martin Central.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And just to clarify, thank the Prime Minister for her response to the supplemental. But my inquiry was because the initiative to expand the opening hours of these health centers was initiated prior to the advent of this committee. Therefore, how can the committee be taking or be given credit for an initiative that they met in train? Further supplemental, Madam Deputy Speaker. Okay, sure.
Thank you. You know, I remember some years ago we talked about coulda, woulda, and shoulda. Yeah. That is, it was in train, it was in plan. We were going to do it, we would do it, we maybe went. And it doesn't happen. The Health Commission was established, as I said earlier, to expedite initiatives, to make sure that they happen, so that you have plans and programs that are on the books and paper, gathering dust everywhere, and just doesn't get the rollout. That Health Commission was put in place to expedite, to make things happen. Implementation, as I say, has to be through the RHAs, through the Ministry of Health. But when that commission sits with the team, what is the drawback? What is the obstacle? What is the delay? Why? We go into those discussions, and from that you come up with a plan of action. So you don't just have proposals. The commission assists with a plan of action, with timelines, with deadlines, to make things happen.
Final supplemental. Has the Prime Minister seen improvement in the health sector since the implementation of this committee?
You know, it's an excellent question, and the answer is also very excellent. Yes. That is to say, there is a saying, they say, question one, who is the boss? Yeah. You name your boss. Question two, who is your boss? Refer to question one. Question three, refer to questions 1 and 2. And so I went through all of that before. I refer you back to the answer that I gave. I gave the entire answer. Yes. And there is more to say if time permits. To what? Of course there has been improvement. Of course there has been improvement. There's been marked improvement. Your health centers are opening later. Your customer care representatives, all those initiatives. I spent 700 young people being employed, of course, having been trained, assisting, with customer care. When you come to a health center, the complaint we got when I had the national conference, people were saying, look, when you come, they have you waiting so long. You're already feeling sick. Nobody there to tell you, okay, don't worry, we'll take care of you. These are the things the CSRs are doing. There is so much more, sir. Yes, the answers are resounding. Yes, to improvement.
Yeah, supplemental. The Prime Minister stated that with the advent of this Health Commission, this is to make things happen in the health sector. What is the role of the Minister of Health in all of this?
Minister of Health is a member of that National Health Commission, similar to the National Security Council, which helps us to deal with issues of, which was set up long before our time, to set a team in place instead of having one person where this is so vital and important, there's so much to be done. The Minister is there, and he has an input, and he guides as well the discussions that take place.
Member for Shugwanas West.
Prime Minister, have you taken any steps to establish a commission of inquiry into the witness tampering scandal that has resulted in 2 cabinet ministers being fired and 3 others implicated in an alleged attempt to influence former Minister of National Security, Gary Griffith, who is a stated witness in this matter?
The answer is no. I'm sure the supplement will be why. No. And the reason simply is because this is a matter under police investigation. And therefore, we need to understand what is the role and function of a commission of inquiry. A commission of inquiry, which I have a question later on to answer, but it's basically the same answer. A commission of inquiry is established to search out the facts, the technocrats, the details, the issues and so on, the facts. From those facts, what does a commission of inquiry do? It then recommends to send it to Integrity Commission, send it to the police service, send it to DPP and so on. So it is one stage after a commission of inquiry. This is in fact on step 2 with investigations being undertaken. So in my respectful view, there is no need at this point in time to set up a commission of inquiry to ascertain what is happening here.
Like Sir David Simon.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Is the Prime Minister aware that the usual protocol associated with National Carnival Commission and members of Parliament in relation to the distribution of tickets for carnival events under its purview in 2015 was breached this year when no tickets were given to Member of Parliament for Chaguanas West, and when no tickets of any kind were given for Chaguanas West? And Prime Minister, can you advise me whether you condone this behavior?
Oil fell. NCC sent tickets back.
You know, it is really interesting where the Parliament has reached in Prime Minister's question time.
Yes.
Shame.
When in clear, I would say maybe, potentially, breach of the Integrity in Public Life Act, we have a member asking the Prime Minister
Why he didn't get
carnival tickets. The answer to the question, I'm not aware of any protocol breach. Certainly Minister Douglas, who seems very eager, may want to make a statement on that on a later point in time.
Next time, just ask me for a ticket, we will give him.
Member.
But all I'm asking is whether there's any discrimination by your government against this Member of Parliament.
You get tickets?
They're quiet.
I notice your friends, your co-partners and so on the opposition benches are very quiet. I think they probably received their tickets. Yeah. I am saying again, they were lucky.
Joan, you'll take your ticket.
Perhaps you need to, listen, look, it's not funny. I am not aware of any breach, Honourable Member Chaguanas West. I will ask the Minister to find out what happened, why it happened, but there was no intent for discrimination. I've always stood against discrimination in every regard. And I think the member for Chaguanas well knows that I will not condone discrimination in any way. And so we'll ask the Minister to find out from the NCC what has happened. Sense every day, madam.
Question 10.
Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, question 10 has to be answered by question 6, so I'll skip that. I'm going to question 11. Thank you. Question 11. Can the Prime Minister indicate?
Yes, sir. Could I just understand what's happening here? I don't know if the member has this authority to skip his question, as he skipped his motion some weeks ago. There's a question on the order paper the Prime Minister has prepared to answer. So please, this is not the motion where just sit down and say nothing. There's a question.
The person asking this question is the member for Chaguanas West, and he have indicated that the question was given in question 6. So I will move on now and allow him to go to question 11.
Sense suggest that? Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Question 11, as I was saying 5 minutes ago. Can the Prime Minister indicate whether the government will be taking any steps to introduce or reintroduce any system for the collection of land and building taxes or any form of property tax during the current session of this Parliament?
Honourable Member, the answer is no.
Thank you.
And the question?
Member for Chaguanas West.
12. can the Prime Minister indicate when the House of Representatives will consider the amendments made in the Senate to the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2014, which proposes a runoff system for general elections?
Matter of the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2014 remains on the order paper, and notice will be given in advance of when it will be debated in the House of Representatives. Will I say answer?
You may proceed, Member for Shogunas West.
Prime Minister, the answer is you can't indicate. Am I correct to infer that?
This is a false dilemma question, but I have said it is on the order paper, as are many other matters on the order paper. In accordance with the standing orders of this Honourable House, notice is given prior to debate for any matter on the order paper, and we will comply with the protocols established by the standing orders. Advance notice will be given as and when that matter will be debated.
What are the bail bill? You want to know when that debate is?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Is the Prime Minister aware that preparations for elections are required at the Election and Boundaries Commission? And in the event that this matter comes to the House and the law is changed as proposed by the government last August, and an election due any time at the Prime Minister's pleasure, is the Prime Minister concerned about the Election and Boundaries Commission at least being put in a position to know the nature of elections in Trinidad and Tobago in 2015?
Government will make absolutely certain that the EBC is fully prepared and ready for elections when they are called, as they have always been.
That kind of commitment being given by the Prime Minister, is the Prime Minister aware is that the Election and Boundaries Commission is a very sensitive and independent commission which ought not to be subjected to the foibles of the Prime Minister like that?
I take objection to the statement made. What foible is he speaking of?
Whining and San
What is the honourable member needs to explain what he's speaking about. I have indicated there's a very serious allegation you're saying against the Prime Minister. I have said the EBC will be given enough notice of the elections, as is done in every election. Look, last year we had local government election. And just previous to that, we had the whole change with the Alderman, the PR aspect of the Alderman's bill. Was the EBC caught flat-footed? No. The EBC has already said it by memory serves me right in the print that they will be ready. And I'm saying any responsible government will give the resources that are necessary to be fully prepared for an election.
Has the Prime Minister received any correspondence from the EBC on this particular matter of the runoff or no runoff?
I do not recall receiving any correspondence on this matter. I have
want to know private correspondence of the Prime Minister. You recall Shade?
Please, 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 leader of the opposition. I am calling your attention, leader of the opposition. You have, leader of the opposition, you have asked a supplemental question, and the Prime Minister is going to answer you. Madam Prime Minister.
Thank you very much.
You answer it? Okay. We move on to Laventel East Morvan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As head of the National Security Council, can the Prime Minister indicate why a decision has been taken to reduce the number of armored vehicles allocated to law enforcement, and also indicate whether other cuts were made or are anticipated in allocation in the Ministry of National Security?
Prime Minister. The Cabinet took no decision to reduce the number of armored vehicles. I think your question may have come about because something reported in the newspaper from the Minister of National Security. But there has been no decision of the Cabinet to reduce or cut this matter.
Is the Prime Minister aware that the Minister of National Security made that statement?
I just said that.
Are you aware that he made that statement?
I just said that your question may have come about because of a report carried in a newspaper where it is alleged that the Minister of National Security said that. It's a report. And once the report on it is confirmed, it's alleged. Not everything you read in black and white. Look, not everything you read in black and white is true, you know. It may not be true that that child was 17 years old. Or it's reported.
Yeah.
Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, I saw the Minister of National Security on television. This is not an allegation. I saw the Minister of National Security on television stating categorically that there will be a reduction in the armored vehicles.
Honourable,
Yeah.
the question is, the Cabinet has taken no decision with respect to that. I was not as fortunate as you are to see the Minister of National Security on TV, but the Cabinet decision has not been taken to make any cut with respect to the armored vehicles. So we raise it with the Minister, and of course it has to be, for cuts to be made, coming from the Ministry of Finance, coming through the Cabinet. We cannot make decisions on hoof, on foot, or by mouth.
Thank you.
Final question, member for point 14.
With regard to the petrochemical sector, can the Prime Minister advise what policies, legislation or incentives have been promoted by the government in an effort to control greenhouse gas emissions, given the fact that Trinidad and Tobago is the second highest producer in the world of such emissions, with 80% annually being attributable to the energy sector?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I will just indicate some of these, because time will not permit to go through all the things that are being done. The Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs and the NGC have been working on a feasibility study to capture carbon dioxide emitted from Point Lisas for use in enhanced oil recovery in mature oil fields in Trinidad, in South Trinidad. That ministry, in collaboration with National Energy, has conducted an energy efficiency audit of the petrochemical plants at Point Lisas. The purpose of this study was to identify opportunities for improvement with regard to energy efficiency and, by extension, reduce carbon dioxide emissions. 2 companies at Point Lisas have already started implementation of the energy efficiency projects. It is the policy of government that any new power generation capacity should adhere to energy efficiency benchmarks and, where feasible, move towards combined cycle technology. Through the Finance Act of 2010, the government has put in place fiscal incentives to encourage companies to conduct energy audits and, where possible, pursue projects to improve their overall energy efficiency. The National Climate Change Policy was laid in Parliament in 2011. This addresses greenhouse gas emission in all sectors. It also treats with a carbon reduction strategy in the transport, power generation and industrial sectors. This strategy has been finalized by the Ministry of the Environment and Water Resources and will be submitted to Cabinet shortly. The Ministry of the Environment and Water Resources is currently reviewing existing legislation and policy with the view of amending existing laws and drafting new legislation to mainstream issues of climate change into the national policy agenda. The Ministry of the Environment and Water Resources is also currently conducting feasibility studies to identify sites for the carbon capture and sequestration.